Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hello.
This week, we've got a really interesting slice of life from early May 2025. We've been listening closely to a radio show. It's called Past Week, Next Week, and this episode aired Sunday, May 4th.
Yeah, and it's quite the mix, isn't it? You've got their takes on current events, some very personal stories from the hosts themselves, Chris, Paul, and Boogie.
Right.
Plus listener texts, their news quiz, that What's Bugging You segment. It's a lot.
It is. And our mission here is really to pull out the most insightful bits, the interesting nuggets from their broadcast.
Kind of shortcut for you, yeah, to get their perspectives on what was happening that week.
Exactly. So how did they even kick things off? What was their summary of the week?
Well, they used music to set the tone. Talking Heads, Bring Down the House.
Ah, okay.
And their interpretation was, well, it captured the turbulence, politically speaking, especially with the first 100 days of the administration just wrapping up.
That first 100 days thing, it's such a historical marker, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. They mention it goes way back to FDR 1932.
Right. It's just stuck as this benchmark.
And what was interesting was how differently the hosts saw those 100 days. One called it terrifying. Another was more like mitigating disaster.
That contrast really says something about the time, doesn't it?
It really does. Reflects the polarization,
Yeah. And speaking of things maybe not going smoothly, sounds like their radio app had issues.
Uh-huh. Technical difficulties. Listeners complaining, apparently. So the hosts apologized. Even joked about giving refunds, which is, kind of funny.
Shows a bit of self-awareness. Got to handle those tech glitches.
Totally.
Yep.
Makes them relatable. Then Chris shared some personal stuff.
Okay.
He'd been to a happy hour. Former colleagues from Sprint, T-Mobile.
Right, I remember that part.
And it sounds like it might have led to a job lead in training through someone named Barb, who used to head up T-Mobile University.
And he seemed really impressed by her, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely. He compared her quite favorably to figures from the old Sprint University days.
Interesting. Gives you a little peek behind the curtain, maybe?
Mm-hmm. And then a listener actually helped him find a handyman.
Oh, that's cool. Community connection.
Yeah, to rescreen his porch. So practical help from the audience, too.
Nice. What else from Chris?
Let's see. His daughter Abby's birthday, 23. She was celebrating with friends.
Milestones.
And his wife Molly was in New York for the Slice Soda relaunch.
Okay.
And she apparently saw, well, something pretty unpleasant on a subway platform. Human feces.
Oof. Yeah, that's New York sometimes, I guess. Memorable image, though.
Definitely. And then a later observation from Chris seeing couples without kids at Red Robin.
Yeah, he pulled the others on that, right? Would they go to Red Robin without kids?
Exactly. Their answers were pretty varied. Shows how differently people see even casual dining spots.
True. It all paints a picture. Okay, what about Boogie's week?
Boogie shared quite a bit about anxiety, feeling it quite strongly at social things.
Really? Like at that same happy hour?
Yeah, the happy hour with Barb, and then also later meeting friends at a place called Ugly Joe's.
But didn't the others say he seemed fine?
That was the interesting part, that contrast between his internal feeling, which was anxious, and how he came across, which was apparently pretty cool.
That's relatable for a lot of people, I think, that internal versus external thing.
For sure. He also watched some movies. Thunderbolts.
Marvel. How do you like it?
Liked it. Said it was better than some recent Marvel stuff post-Endgame. Not quite as good as the latest Spider-Man, though, his opinion.
Gotcha.
Also watched Train to Busan, the Korean zombie movie. Liked that, too.
Okay.
But he seemed most excited about a TV show called The Pit.
The Pit? What's that about?
Emergency room setting. He raved about it. Non-stop action, realistic. He called it a masterclass of giving and receiving feedback.
Wow. That's high praise for a TV drama. A masterclass in feedback. How so, do you think?
Well, I guess in that high-pressure ER world, communication has to be super direct, right? Clear, honest feedback, good and bad, is probably critical. The show must depict that really well.
Makes sense. High stakes, fast decisions.
Yeah. He also mentioned Bryan Cranston's daughter is in it, which led to a brief aside about the whole Nepo baby conversation.
Right. That discussion.
Mm-hmm. Then he went to the Brookside Art Fair with his wife.
Okay.
Talked about some mosaic art that looked clearer through his phone camera. Kind of a neat modern observation.
Yeah, technology changing perception.
And he saw this Superman piece he thought about getting for Paul.
Oh, yeah.
But it was like $300. Too steep. So, relatable moment of sticker shock.
We've been there.
He ended up going to Ugly Joe's after the fair, actually ordered the same chicken sandwich Chris had recommended before.
Following up on recommendations. Nice.
Yes. Also mentioned his wife started a new job, and he made some funny observation about her driving. Something about accelerating before speed bumps.
Details.
And a big family thing, both his sons had their football signing days. Ceremonial ones, apparently the real deal was back in February.
Okay. The photo op day?
Pretty much. And he also went to a grab party for one of his son's old teammates. Mentioned feeling that social anxiety again, being around parent groups he didn't know as well.
Sounds like a pretty full, kind of emotionally varied week for Boogie.
Yeah, a real mix. Okay, so, finally, Paul's updates.
All right, Paul's week.
Big news. Pool's open.
Yes, finally. Is it warm enough yet?
60 degrees, he said. So, maybe for the brave?
Maybe. A bit chilly.
He's also doing some work around it. Ordered that artificial turf. They call it turfy turf.
Iffy curve, got it.
Friends are going to help him move it, sounds like. Heavy stuff.
Good to have help.
Also had his yearly eye doctor visit. You know, the usual adulting stuff.
Checkups.
But the highlight seemed to be his wedding anniversary, 33 years.
Wow, congrats to them. Where'd they go?
Place called Parapos,
No.
an Argentinian steakhouse. Apparently, Taylor Swift ate there once.
Oh, adding a little star power to the anniversary.
Yeah. And a friend who works there gave them a gift certificate. He had the Maui Maui with lobster risotto, which was supposedly the same dish Taylor Swift had.
Huh. Living like Taylor for a night? That's fun.
Sounds like a great celebration. And TV-wise, he started a show called The Four Seasons.
Tina Fey, based on the Alan Alda movie, right?
That's the one. Said it was really good. Mentioned a big twist, too.
Intriguing. So yeah, quite different weeks for all three of them.
Absolutely. Gives you a real rounded picture.
Okay, let's switch gears to the listener interaction. The texter. This person was busy.
Oh, yeah. Very engaged. Covered a ton of ground. Kicked off asking about the Kentucky Derby watch party, which had apparently happened the night before.
Right. Then they asked about using AI for writing.
The hosts admitted, yeah, mostly for emails, but they have to tweak it, correct contractions, make it sound less, robotic or overly informal.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
AI needs that human touch.
The texter also kind of poked them about politics, asked if it was really that significant. Paul admitted he probably makes it a bigger deal than it needs to be sometime.
That's self-reflection there.
Interesting. Then some trivia about the Talking Heads' original band names, the Spinning Wheels, the Knights of Boogie, though the hosts seemed skeptical if that was real.
It sounds maybe like a joke.
Probably. Texter also dropped a Family Guy reference, Grind Your Gears, and mentioned United Telecom, connecting back to Sprint's history, clearly paying attention.
Definitely knows the show's lore.
Then there was a funny bit asking for the handyman's number Chris mentioned. The answer was just 5.
Huh. Inside joke, maybe?
Must be. And they quoted Clint Howard's opinion on Red Robin. Basically, it sucks, like Ann Landers. Pretty blunt.
Ouch. Okay.
Texter tried to go to Highboy, but it was closed Sundays, considered in-out instead.
Classic weekend dilemmas.
And they gave us a little shout-out. Said the deep dive was popular. We appreciate that.
Always nice to hear.
Even a high mark reference from the room. So definitely tapped into internet culture.
Cult classics.
Asked if the hosts were surprised by how some comic book movie turned out. Paul said he was.
Okay.
Texter helpfully added that HBO Max has all the DC movies.
Good tip.
And suggested maybe Paul likes The Pit because it's unpredictable, unlike, some comic book plots.
Interesting theory. Then that weird question about folders in coffee.
Yeah, that seemed to come out of nowhere, but apparently it related to a pre-show chat. Paul sending actual folders and comparing Illy coffee to the folders of Italy.
Okay, slightly surreal. You had to be there, I guess.
Seems like it. Then, a practical question. Where to take an out-of-towner in Kansas City?
Ah, the classic host question.
Lots of suggestions. Liberty Memorial, Union Station, West Bottoms, the streetcar. They kind of lean towards a general tour. Boulevard Brewery Deck, and the Keyhole also got mentions.
Good Casey recommendations.
Asked who won the Derby Mystic, Dan made a quick comment about a cat in Dallas. Context unclear on that one.
Might be personal to one of the hosts.
Yeah, maybe. Asked about Paul's pool being down. Was it 1 summer or 2? Paul clarified. 1. But leaks have been an ongoing saga.
Cool problems. Ugh.
Then the texter joked about running from the cops. Timing probably made it funny.
Hopefully just a joke.
Almost certainly. They circled back to the folder thing, asking if the hosts agree. The best part of waking up is folders in your cup.
Playful? Okay.
Texter mentioned liking drawing instructions, which was funny because the host had just been complaining about them,
Contrasting views.
and shared a relatable moment, sitting in a coffee shop, waiting for the podcast feed to update. Very meta for us doing this deep dive.
It is, isn't it?
Learned the texter's favorite pigment. Cobalt blue. Nice detail.
Random, but interesting.
Addressed Boogie about the movie Boogie Nights, pointing out the spelling difference,
Gentle ribbing.
and shared a weird text they got. Someone asking for an estimate, but not saying what for. Texter replied asking about train times in Japan. Just random.
Okay, that's peak texter behavior right there.
Pretty much. And finally recalled the old space shuttle heat shield concerns, thinking about it from an astronaut's view.
Wow. That's quite a range. From coffee folders to space travel.
Exactly. Shows a really strong listener connection, doesn't it?
It really does. Okay, let's shift to something more serious. The segment on President Trump's promises made, promises kept. Focused on immigration, right?
Yeah.
So.
Specifically, the promise discussed during the campaign to deport large numbers of immigrants. The figure mentioned was 15 to 20 million.
Even though estimates of the actual undocumented population are, I think, closer to 11 million?
Right, there's a disconnect there. They discussed the proposed plans, detention camps, expanded removal processes, possibly using the Alien Enemies Act or the Insurrection Act.
Heavy stuff.
And they highlighted a specific, very concerning report from April. 3 U.S.-born children, one a 4-year-old with cancer, apparently deported to Honduras with their undocumented mothers.
Well, that's awful.
Yeah, and there were disputes about whether the mothers truly consented, plus serious questions about due process, access to medical care, legal help.
Oh, really troubling situation.
It also tied back to a 2019 policy change ending medical deferred action for immigrants with serious health issues, basically forcing people to leave if they were sick.
The tone must have been pretty somber during this part.
It was, though there was a moment of dark humor. One of the hosts, probably Chris, given his job search, made a quip.
Oh, yeah?
Something about how these deportations might impact his job hunt and definitely sink his chances of becoming Pope, referencing some AI image of Trump as Pope.
Ah, finding humor in dark places, I guess. A coping mechanism someday.
Exactly, a way to kind of break the tension on a really tough subject.
Understood. Okay, moving on to their news quiz highlights. What came up there?
First question was about Trump's 100th day rally location, Michigan. Then they talked approval ratings, recent polls, NPR, PBS, NYT, CBS had him low 40s, maybe even 30s.
That's notably low for this point in a presidency, right?
Yeah.
Even compared to his first term.
Apparently so. Lowest on record at that stage, according to the show, suggests ongoing public dissatisfaction.
All right, what else?
Mentioned Democratic lawmaker Jimmy Gomez introducing impeachment articles. 7 of them.
Significant move from the opposition.
Yeah. Then a slightly odd item. Cabinet members wearing baseball caps at a meeting.
Caps. Saying what?
Gulf of America. Apparently meant as praise for Trump's work.
Okay. Unusual.
They also covered the GDP contracting by 0.3%. And Trump's reaction, blaming Biden, even though, well, he was president now.
Right. The political blame game with economic numbers.
Exactly. It sparked a little discussion about how narratives get shaped around that data.
Sure. International news.
Cardinal Baccia, convicted of embezzlement by the Vatican back in 2023, he didn't end up participating in the papal conclave, despite some earlier talk that he might try.
Okay, Vatican intrigue.
And David Perdue confirmed as U.S. ambassador to China. This was interesting because he'd been labeled anti-China before.
Right, amidst all the tariff talk and trade tensions.
Yeah. It led to a bit of discussion on strategy with China. Is it better to focus on trade relationships long-term rather than just tariffs?
Complex question. No easy answers there.
For sure. They also touched on possible shipping issues from China and a rumor that Temu might stop shipping to the U.S., just highlighting those economic links and vulnerabilities.
Got it. Okay, now for maybe a more universally relatable segment. What's bugging you? Pet peeves time.
Yes. Paul kicked it off. Too many surveys from doctors, customer service, just constant requests for feedback.
Oh, I feel that. It's everywhere.
Cruz chimed in with slow drivers in the passing lane, a classic road rage trigger.
Yep. Universal frustration.
And Boogie was annoyed by the tip prompts everywhere, especially at counters for just like handing you something, feeling obligated even for minimal service.
The great tipping debate. That must have sparked some discussion.
It did. What's appropriate? General agreement on 20% for sit-down. Paul suggested maybe 10% for restaurant pickup, but the counter service thing. more disagreement there. Do you have to tip?
It's tricky. Feels like the prompts are multiplying.
Definitely. Paul also complained about packaging. Overly complicated, wasteful, and just hard to open, especially as you get older.
So true. Wrap rage is real.
Then Chris shared his shock at Cobra costs. Health insurance, $3,000 a month, with a high deductible.
Ooh. Yeah, healthcare costs are just staggering. That's a huge burden.
Massive. Boogie added his frustration. The whole do-it-yourself thing, especially with terrible assembly instructions.
Yeah. Putting together furniture from instructions written by well, who knows who. Infuriating.
Total nightmare feel sometimes. Paul then vented about the IRS, making people pay taxes online, but with really cumbersome security. ID.me, text verification. Hard for older folks sometimes.
Bureaucracy and tech hurdles. Fun combo.
And finally, just general annoyance from everyone about scams, texts, emails. They're relentless, and it feels like nothing really stops them. Chris shared some recent, almost funny attempts he'd gotten.
Yeah, the scam attempts are constant. You just have to be so vigilant.
It's exhausting. So yeah, a lot of shared everyday frustrations there.
Definitely relatable stuff. Okay, they wrapped up with some satirical news. Headlines and predictions.
Yeah, fictional headlines with a humorous, satirical spin. First one, imagine huge protests against Trump's immigration policies, the Gaza war, anti-union stuff. Included a fake, quote, criticizing Trump.
Gotcha. Satirical commentary.
Then a scenario where Trump signs an order to defund NPR and PBS.
Okay.
With a funny, imagined response from PBS about Sesame Street now being sponsored by, like, random letters or concepts.
Stabber.
Also, a fictional judge blocking Trump's use of the Alien Enemies Act for deportations. Then they imagine the administration trying increasingly absurd legal arguments next.
Pushing the satire.
A joke about Mike Walls becoming UN ambassador instead of Elise Stefanik, with a jab at Marco Rubio being relieved he didn't have to fill in temporarily.
Political inside baseball humor.
Sort of. Then a really out there one. A humanoid robot winning a half marathon in Beijing. Dian Kong Ultra. Needed battery swaps, even fell down.
Robot marathon.
And with a fake quote from the robot referencing, I'll be back or something like that. Sci-fi satire.
Right.
And the last one was about a real bookstore, Serendipity Books, needing to move. The satirical angle was the community forming a human chain to pass the books along.
A human conveyor belt.
Yeah, contrasting it humorously with the alternative of banning and burning books, making a point through that contrast.
A lighthearted way to touch on serious themes.
Exactly. It's their way of ending with some pointed humor.
So yeah, that really covers the whole broadcast, doesn't it?
I think so. As we wrap up this deep dive into that past week, next week episode, it's clear we covered a huge amount of ground.
We really did.
Yeah.
You get such a strong sense of the hosts' personalities.
Right.
And there are different ways of looking at everything that week, from the big political picture down to, annoying packaging and personal anxieties.
Absolutely. It's like this little time capsule, a snapshot of early May 2025 filtered through their conversations. It really makes you think, doesn't it? About how we process news, how we react to things happening around us, how we deal with just the everyday stuff that gets under our skin.
It does. So, turning it over to you, listening now. What stood out most to you from this dive into their past week? What part made you nod along or maybe raised a question in your mind? Definitely gives you a lot to chew on.